Welcome to this year's Greek Shipping Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. A very different ceremony this year, but our intention is the same as ever, to take you with us on an extraordinary voyage of Greek shipping, and to pay tribute along the way to some of the people who have written the history of this unique industry. Before the end of our program, we will also unveil the two newest inductees to the Hall of Fame. Usually this occasion is a dinner event that we eagerly look forward to holding here in Athens. But this year's virtual event is actually an opportunity. You don't have to miss it if you're based in another country or traveling. And we are also delighted to welcome you if you are coming upon the Hall of Fame for the very first time. And where better to hold it than here, in the great port of Piraeus. The spiritual home of Greek shipping. Here you can practically inhale the maritime history. Over there, only about 3 miles away from where we are, the Greeks destroyed the Persian fleet in one of the most momentous watershed moments in all of human history. The Battle of Salamis took place exactly 2,500 years ago, virtually to this very day. The power of ancient Athens rested on a maritime defense system masterminded by Themistocles. He built a fortified corridor from Athens leading down to a huge naval base here in Piraeus, where sheds were built to shelter about 370 triremes. The largest of the trireme facilities was located just over there in Zea. It was late September 480 BC when the Greek fleet drew the far larger force of 1,000 Persian ships into the narrow Salamis Strait and scored its history-bending victory. But we don't have to go back to ancient times to celebrate Greek exploits on the seas. The Greek Shipping Hall of Fame was established specifically to focus on modern Greek merchant shipping. From the last decades of the Age of Sail in the 19th century up to today, the Hall of Fame recognizes the industry's greatest and most deserving personalities. It aims to help answer the intriguing question of how a small country with a fragile economy and very little seaborne trade of its own, Greece, overcame the odds, just like the triremes of Themistocles, and became a world leader in the tough arena of global shipping. At this point, it's my honor to introduce Greece's Minister of Shipping and Island Policy, Ioannis Plakiotakis.
Η ιστορία της Ελλάδος είναι απόλυτα συνυφασμένη με το υγρό στοιχείο. Από την αρχαιότητα ως τις μέρες μας, η θάλασσα αποτέλεσε και συνεχίζει να αποτελεί ένα από τα κυρίαρχα συστατικά του DNA μας. Η ναυτιλία των Ελλήνων είναι η μεγαλύτερη και η ισχυρότερη ναυτιλία του κόσμου. Η ισχύς αυτή γεννά μία ευθύνη απέναντι στην παγκόσμια οικονομία. Η ναυτιλία των Ελλήνων έχει λόγο, θέσεις και μία τεράστια εμπειρία που τους επιτρέπει να συνδιαμορφώνει τη διεθνή ναυτιλιακή πολιτική σε όλα τα επίπεδα. Η ελληνική ναυτιλία αποτελεί διαχρονικά έναν από τους ισχυρότερους πυλώνες ανάπτυξης της χώρας μας, καθώς η ισχύς και οι παγκόσμιες πρωτιές της συνθέτουν ένα πλαίσιο το οποίο λειτουργεί καταλυτικά σε οικονομικό και γεωστρατηγικό επίπεδο, τόσο εντός όσο και εκτός Ελλάδος. Η κυβέρνηση του Κυριάκου Μητσοτάκη έθεσε από την πρώτη στιγμή ως προτεραιότητα την ενίσχυση της ανταγωνιστικότητας της ελληνικής ναυτιλίας και την αντιμετώπιση των συνεχών και αυξανόμενων προκλήσεων. Οι Έλληνες πλειοκτήτες και εφοπλιστές, οι ναυτικοί μας, τα στελέχη και οι εργαζόμενοι των ναυτιλιακών εταιριών, από τον πρώτο έως τον τελευταίο, συγκροτούν μια ισχυρή ομάδα που έχει αποδείξει ότι ξέρει να κερδίζει. Δεν μπορώ να ξεχωρίσω κάποιον, όλοι τους, ο καθένας με το δικό του τρόπο και τις όποιες δυνάμεις διαθέτει, έχουν προσφέρει και συνεχίζουν να προσφέρουν πολλά στον τόπο. Αυτό που πρέπει να διαφυλάξουμε ως κόριο οφθαλμού είναι η ναυτοσύνη μας, η μεταφορά της τεχνογνωσίας από γενιά σε γενιά. Η πανδημία του κορονοϊού ανέτρεψε τα πάντα και δημιούργησε νέα δεδομένα. Σίγουρα υπάρχουν πολλά και σύνθετα ζητήματα που πρέπει να διαχειριστούμε όλοι μαζί στην παγκόσμια ναυτιλιακή βιομηχανία. Γεγονός είναι πως η παγκόσμια ναυτιλία άντεξε την πίεση από αυτό το απρόσμενο και ξαφνικό γεγονός και συνεχίζει να εξυπηρετεί απρόσκοπτα το παγκόσμιο εμπόριο.
The Greek Shipping Hall of Fame thanks our event sponsors. Lead sponsors: ABS, IRI, the Marshall Islands Registry, Shanghai Waigiaoqiao Shipbuilding Company, TMS, Navios Maritime Holdings. Premium sponsors: Bureau Veritas, City Private Bank, More Greece, Optima Shipping Services. Standard sponsors: China Classification Society, Class NK, the Shipping Deputy Ministry of the Republic of Cyprus, the Akali Club, HSBC, KPMG, Kivinitis Group, Marikem Marigas's Worldwide Services. And our additional event supporters: Bahamas Maritime Authority, Danaus Corporation, Marin Dry Management, the Swedish Club, Weber Seas Hellas. The Greek Shipping Hall of Fame thanks our foundation supporters: All Seas Marine, Almi Tankers, Alpha Bulkers Ship Management, Angelakousis Shipping Group, Arcadia Ship Management, Capital Ship Management, Cardiff Marine, Ceres Shipping, Chartworld Shipping Corporation, Costa Mare, Cyprus Sea Lines, Delta Tankers, Dorian LPG, Empire Navigation, Enterprises Shipping and Trading, European Navigation, M Maritime, Navios Maritime Holdings, Olympic Shipping and Management, Phoenix Energy Navigation, Safe Bulkers, Target Marine, the Chakos Group, Savliris Salvage Group, Vafias Group.
When it comes to modern Greek shipping, here we are standing on truly sacred ground, the Hellas Liberty. Of the 2,700 Liberty ships churned out by American shipyards during the Second World War, the greatest shipbuilding program in history, only 3 are still around today. Of the surviving trio, 2 were turned into floating museums many years ago. So the Hellas Liberty here, in fact, was considered the very last Liberty of all when she was made seaworthy, dragged out of her long-term resting place in Virginia, USA, and towed across the Atlantic to Greece in 2008. We are very grateful to the Friends of the Liberty Association for allowing us on board to host this year's virtual event on such an inspiring spot. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Built as the Arthur M. Huddle in 1943, this Liberty had a small role in the Allies' invasion of Normandy that was a key event in the outcome of the war. The Liberty ships were built fast and cheap to cross the Atlantic with vital supplies for America's European allies and the war effort. Constructing a vessel was seen as worthwhile even if she completed a single voyage. Yards raced to complete new ships in weeks, sometimes even a matter of days, to keep pace with the toll German submarines and aircraft took on the convoys. Greece lost 3/4 of its fleet in the war. More than 2,000 Greek merchant seafarers lost their lives. The Hellas Liberty commemorates these sacrifices. But this ship also honors the astonishing rebirth of Greek shipping since the war. President Theodore Roosevelt had initially called them ugly ducklings before their patriotic branding as Liberty vessels. But Greeks, with hindsight, came to know them as the blessed vessels. The Liberty ships allocated to Greeks gave a lifeline to shipowners who saw their freighters sunk in the war. They also gave immediate employment to 4,000 Greek seamen. Greek shipowners also became the chief buyers of surplus Liberty ships that came on the second-hand market. Many of the 2,500 Liberties that survived the war were laid up, but about 1,000 traded after the war, and 2/3 of these at some stage of their lives, came under Greek ownership. Many shipping fortunes can be traced to a single Liberty ship and a few successful voyages. It's really no surprise that Liberties aided the careers of many of the Hall of Fame's inductees. The story of modern Greek shipping is gritty and glamorous, global as well as local. In fact, for much of the period the Hall of Fame is concerned with, the center of the business was not even here in Greece. Most of the action and the decision-making was centered on London or, for a time, New York. Piraeus only emerged as the uncontested capital of Greek shipping well into the second half of the 20th century. Along the way, though, its importance was aided by developments such as the establishment of the Union of Greek Shipowners here in 1916. Throughout the last turbulent century, it has provided a collective voice for a large and disparate business community. We are delighted that the President of the Union of Greek Shipowners today, Mr. Theodore Veniamis, is with us to say a few words.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, χαιρετίζω τη φετινή εκδήλωση του Πάνθεων της ελληνικής ναυτιλίας που φέρνει στη μνήμη μας συναδέλφους μας που δεν είναι πια μαζί μας και που διακρίθηκαν όχι μόνο επιχειρηματικά, αλλά για την πολύπλευρη προσφορά τους στον τόπο μας. Όλοι εμείς στην οικογένεια της ναυτιλίας των Ελλήνων θεωρούμε υποχρέωσή μας διαχρονικά να αποδίδουμε φόρο τιμής στις προηγούμενες γενιές. Εξάλλου, η ναυτιλιακή μας παράδοση και η ιστορία μας ακολουθεί και μας καθοδηγεί στα τελευταία 100 χρόνια και όχι μόνο στην πρωτοκαθεδρία της παγκόσμιας ναυτιλιακής σκηνής. Παράλληλα, ατενίζουμε το μέλλον και τις προκλήσεις του με αισιοδοξία και είμαι πεπισμένος ότι θα συνεχίσουμε με τα εχέγγυα της μακράς μας ναυτιλιακής παράδοσης να κρατάμε τα σκύπτρα αυτής της πρωτοκαθεδρίας με στόχο πάντοτε τη συνεχή ποιοτική αναβάθμιση των προσφερωμένων ναυτιλιακών υπηρεσιών. Ας μην ξεχνάμε όμως ότι στα θέματα ασφαλείας και προστασίας του θαλασσίου περιβάλλοντος δεν έχουμε εμείς τον πρώτο λόγο, αλλά εκείνοι που κατασκευάζουν τα πλοία μας, τις μηχανές τους και τα καύσιμα. Όμως δυστυχώς, θα το επαναλάβω, η πρωτοπόρος ναυτιλία ως διεθνής δραστηριότητα βάλεται από πολλές πλευρές, που δεν έχει πατρίδα και επομένως δεν υπάρχει πολιτικό κόστος. Η πανδημία που βιώνει σήμερα η ανθρωπότητα ανέδειξε για άλλη μια φορά τις αντικατάστατες υπηρεσίες που προσφέρει η ναυτιλία και το έμψυχο δυναμικό των πλοίων που αξίζουν τη διεθνή αναγνώριση και κάθε δυνατή υποστήριξη. Αν και είναι δεδομένο ότι χωρίς ναυτιλία ο πλανήτης θα στερούταν από βασικά αγαθά που χρειάζεται η κοινωνία μας. Ίσως περισσότερο ακόμα σε περιόδους κρίσεων είναι παράδοξο και λυπηρό ότι κανείς δεν ενδιαφέρθηκε για το πώς η ναυτιλία και οι άνθρωποι της συνέχισαν και συνεχίζουν να προσφέρουν υπό τις συγκεκριμένες αντίξωες συνθήκες τις απαιτούμενες θαλάσσιες μεταφορικές υπηρεσίες. Νιώθουμε λοιπόν χρέος να αποδώσουμε τα εύσημα σε όλους τους ναυτικούς μας, ανεξαρτήτως εθνικότητας, που προσφέρουν τα μέγιστα ειδικά στην κρίσιμη αυτή περίοδο, πραγματικά ως ήρωες των θαλασσών, μετά τους ήρωες της στεριάς, γιατρούς και νοσηλευτικό προσωπικό. Και θα ζητήσω από εκείνους που μπορούν πράγματι να δώσουν τη λύση, κυβερνήσεις και αεροπορικές εταιρείες, να εξασφαλίσουν την απρόσκοπη μετακίνηση και παλινόστησή τους. Τέλος, θέλω από καρδιάς να αναφερθώ στο δημιούργημα της ναυτιλιακής μας οικογένειας, την εταιρεία προσφοράς ελληνικού εφοπλισμού Συνένωσης, που συνεχίζει σε συλλογικό αυτή τη φορά επίπεδο τη μακρόχρονη προσφορά των ανθρώπων της ναυτιλίας στον τόπο μας και στην κοινωνία. Όραμά μας είναι να γιγαντώσουμε το πολύπλευρο έργο της και να την κληροδοτήσουμε στις επόμενες γενιές μας ως πρότυπο μηχανισμό κοινωνικής αλληλεγγύης. Σας ευχαριστώ.
The time has come to introduce you briefly to some of the historic personalities who, in defiance of the odds, helped Greek shipping on its path to being a world leader. Our first 30 inductees. And following that, we'll unveil the two historic shipping personalities who today join them by being inducted into the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame. And if that's not exciting enough, and you need an extra incentive to stay tuned till the end, well, we are giving away a fantastic antique Greek seascape by one of Greece's first Impressionist painters, Epaminondas Thermopoulos. In 1927, Thermopoulos was awarded the prestigious Academy of Athens Award, and in 1962, he was elected president of the Academy. His work is represented in the National Gallery of Greece, the municipal galleries of Athens and Patras, and other prestigious public and private collections. In the course of the event, I'll be giving you 2 clues that will give you the key to a very simple question before the conclusion of our induction ceremony. First person to answer the question correctly, as received by our friends at Moore, Greece, will win this unique and beautiful seascape. Because you'll have to be quick to win, now would be a very good time to make a note of the number for you to text your answers. So you'll have to SMS number 697-232-9725. And of course, if you're calling from outside Greece, add country code 30. The first clue is coming up now, and you may want to make a note of this too. It's the number 19. For Greece, the shipping industry is a national paradigm. but in being the largest in the world for the last 50 years, it is also an international phenomenon. Although Greeks account for less than 0.2% of the world's population, Greek shipowners serve the globe with 20% of the world fleet in cargo shipping capacity. If you look exclusively at the world fleet of oil tankers, the Greek-owned share rises to a staggering 32%. We are in the world's largest ship-owning nation. The closest rivals at this point in time being Japan, China, Singapore and Hong Kong. As a member of the European Union, Greece represents an almost ridiculous 54% of the EU-controlled merchant fleet. Since 2007, our Hall of Fame has been recognizing historic individuals who contributed to this extraordinary and continuing story. Some were household names throughout the shipping world, and in a few cases their fame extended well beyond shipping circles. Others lived low-profile lives calculated to avoid the limelight. Some innovated, wanting to break new frontiers. Others painstakingly preserved family traditions. All of them, in their very individual ways, embodied traits that have powered Greek shipping and molded its identity. Our 2020 event pays tribute to the first 30 inductees, with the help of many friends and leading shipping personalities of today.
Greece's maritime history has been unbroken for centuries. Its skills and traditions survived intact, even during 400 years of subjugation under the Ottoman Empire. When the moment came in 1821 for Greece to rise up, the superior seamanship of Aegean captains helped keep the flame of freedom alive. This was so, particularly in the early years of the War of Independence, as lightly armed merchant vessels from islands such as Hydra, Spetses and Psara waged a successful campaign against the Turkish fleet. The birth pangs of the Greek nation-state and the struggle for its borders would go on fitfully for another century. Nationhood seemed to supercharge Greeks' already keen love of seaborne trading. A formidable fleet of sailing vessels grew up as Greeks came to control a handsome share of cargoes between the Black Sea and Mediterranean, as well as Northern Europe. Even as the Greek revolt was rambling on, another overthrow of the old order was proceeding at speed. The Industrial Revolution, and crucially, the application of the steam engine to shipping. In turn, this influenced rapid changes in naval architecture. The Greek uprising of 1821 coincided with the world's first seagoing ship built of iron. The first paddle steamers appeared in Greek waters around mid-century, but the quantum leap for merchant shipping was the introduction of screw propeller-driven steamships. These enabled ships to cross the Atlantic and also created the conditions for mass transportation of passengers and regular line services. Endeavors such as these, often tinged with patriotic intent, were the focus of several of the Hall of Fame's earliest inductees. In the early days of steam, on the whole, Greeks lacked the funds as well as the expertise to acquire and crew the new steamers. The first newly built Greek steamer, christened Ithaca, was not ordered until 1873. By then, the steamship revolution was so advanced that for the first time more steamships were being ordered worldwide than sailing ships. If they lagged at the beginning, Greeks quickly caught up. By the outbreak of the First World War, their fleet included 454 steamers, with 4 times the capacity of the sailing ship fleet at its 19th century peak. And another trend had grown evident. Once more likely to be commercial all-rounders, now most Greek ship owners started to become specialists in that particular multifaceted art. As Stavros Livanos, doyen of Chios shipowners in the 20th century, was fond of boasting, "I have no money, only ships."
By mid-1890s, he had the biggest independent steamship fleet of Greece, but also of independent ship owners in Western Europe. And he financed his captains, and if he had a ship for 10 or 15 years, then he would sell it to a captain.
Το Πατρίς και τα άλλα υπεροκεάνια της Εθνικής Ατμοπλοείας της Ελλάδος, αυτή ήταν η ονομασία της εταιρείας, ήταν νεότευτα, ήταν καλά εξοπλισμένα, είχαν ελληνικό προσωπικό, είχαν ελληνικό τρόπο, ελληνική κουζίνα.
He said, I have to do something for my country. I want to create here, because here I'm going to die, and here something has to stay afterwards. He said, I want to do things, I have to help my country, and I have to give added value back to my country.
He was articulate and quite dynamic. Obviously, given his starting up from scratch during the tough times that prevailed in those days in Greece, he was tough. He was a tough man.
Chios was part of the Ottoman Empire until the beginning of the 20th century. So when Stavros Livanos was born, he was a citizen of the Ottoman Empire. This made him being very patriotic. He was very, very patriotic.
Ladies and gentlemen, now, more than ever, is an appropriate moment to reflect on the huge contribution of our countrymen to the global shipping. As the world grapples with the unprecedented challenge presented by the pandemic, shipping continues to deliver the goods to ensure global trade continues to flow. To many of us, this comes as no surprise. Just as it is with COVID-19, Greek shipping rose to the challenge in two world wars, crises far more challenging in humanitarian and economic terms than that which confronts us today. It is worth remembering that many of the people who earned the spares in those conflicts are proudly represented in the Hall of Fame. Just as Greek shipping conjured triumph out of adversity with the opportunity presented by the Liberty ships after the Second World War, so too will the pandemic ultimately prove a stimulus to the next era of opportunity for our industry. Already, we're seeing the virus powering innovation through rapid global adoption of technologies to drive value and safety at sea. I am confident even more significant gains lie ahead. The energy, optimism, and innovation of Greek shipping and the remarkable men and women who are the bedrock of our success will ensure we bounce back stronger and fitter to face whatever the future holds. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and congratulations to all the inductees.
Even while subjects of the Ottoman Empire, Greek merchants and captains had not hesitated to travel in pursuit of their fortunes. During the 19th century, they based themselves in strategic hubs on the Danube and Black Sea, as well as Marseille and eventually in Great Britain. The sailing fleet flew a rich patchwork of flags while under Ottoman rule, including the Russian, Ottoman, and Ionian colors, and in some cases, this continued after nationhood. This notion of independence is a key component in the DNA of Greek shipping. At its most elemental level, it is rooted in the sea. The sea could take Greeks from the confines of wind-swept islands or mountaintop villages to ever-widening horizons. It provided a means to escape a hard-scrabble agrarian economy and a financially strapped state. Instead of poor prospects, poverty even, the sea was limitless in its sweep and its possibilities. And shipping itself demanded increasingly global thinking for a world being joined up by technology. Greek steamship owners followed the trading routes, but also the major centers of the freight market, finance, and marine insurance. No matter how much the heart yearned for the homeland, many were becoming residents of London or New York, and in effect, world citizens.
He was a trader. He traded ships, but he knew them, and he knew them from his days at sea on his father's ship, where he describes being on his father's ship, and all the other brothers were making themselves useful. And Manuel was just biding his time. He was taking it all in. He had his eye on the horizon. He was looking at the big picture, even from then.
The ships of Mavrolian brothers were Greek, Liberian, and Panamanian. LOF, of course, was 100% British flag, and they were the only ships registered to the City of London, which was quite an unusual privilege. London Overseas Freighters was a British company. He had good relationships with major charterers, including in the US.
I think what you see in Greek shipping and what you saw in Michael Panagopulos, my father, was a deep knowledge of the ships, the people. He used to tell me very often, never leave the sea. Never leave the sea. Η θάλασσα έχει πολλά παράθυρα, which means the sea has many opportunities.
What makes him a distinct shipping personality is not that upon his death in 1989 he controlled a fleet of 42 ocean-going ships, but that he was established as a world-class ship owner committed and dedicated to quality shipping.
And this tremendous ethos, this doing things right, doing things the right way, not cutting corners, doing things for the long term, have served him very well, not only in Nigeria, but throughout his shipping and other industrial pursuits. He also had a tremendous compassion for people. He believed in people. He believed in their best side.
In Greece, we have been traders, owners, and seafarers for years. Perhaps more than any other maritime nation, the Greek shipping community is celebrated for its entrepreneurial spirit, its respect for tradition, and its resourcefulness, its ability to meet new challenges swiftly and with grace. And this virtual event is one example. The Marshall Islands is known worldwide as a quality flag, a perfect match for Greek shipping's high standards. The flag has been a large presence in the Greek maritime market for decades, with our continued expansion and investment in resources. As we continue to adapt to a changing world, we've learned that our ability to work together as a community is our greatest strength. The challenges brought by COVID-19 are the catalyst for adopting new measures and procedures in a demanding, digital, international environment. The individuals who have played such important roles in our industry, who push and inspire us, are the Hall of Fame inductees we honor today.
We are delighted to continue our relationship with the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame and to support this important event for the third consecutive year.
Prior to World War II, it was already evident that Greeks had an eccentric talent for shipping, perhaps even an addiction to it. The wider world, however, was largely unconscious of this. After the war, all that changed. And it changed mainly due to the golden Greeks and their tankers. Tankers!
Tankers.
Tankers!
Tankers.
Tankers!
Tankers.
Tankers!
Tankers.
Given a shot of adrenaline with the 100 Liberty vessels, the battered remains of Greek shipping revived itself. The ambitions of men like Aristotle Onassis and Stavros Niarchos had largely been stymied by the war. Now it was unleashed on an unsuspecting world. They rode the post-war economic boom and surge in seaborne trade all the way to international magazine covers. The so-called Golden Greeks became an object of international fascination and at times titillation. The superstars of that era were snapped, rubbing shoulders with presidents and prime ministers, princes and power brokers, stars of silver screen and stars of highbrow opera. They seemed as comfortable in such circles as in talking to their crews. For even those who were aficionados of glamour and comfortable with their new notoriety remained first and foremost men who worked hard on the nuts and bolts of the shipping business. Much of the success of Greek shipowners in the post-war shipping industry can be attributed to their invasion of the tanker sector, hitherto mainly playground for Norwegians. Against a backdrop of growing need for energy, they grasped the superior economics of ever larger ships. During the decades immediately after the war, a handful of Greek owners were constantly vying to build the world's largest ship and to have the largest fleet. In doing so, they were serving a rapidly changing world. Not only that, their shipbuilding orders gave work to numerous countries. Of special note, they provided moral as well as tangible support to ravaged industry in Germany and from the 1950s onwards, Japan.
He was a powerful character, a powerful personality. He was ahead of his time as a man of business, but he was also ahead of his time as a man of history. He chose the right things to do. And it's not just shipping. It's not just that he was building the largest and better ships each time. He built the Tina Onassis, which was the largest ship ever built in 1954, and then he built VLCCs and so on.
Another very strong, tough guy who demanded a lot from his people, but got it. You know, I think he was may have been difficult to deal with, but he was generous and he had very good people executing his business for him.
He was very original, he was very authentic, and he was the same with everybody. It didn't matter if it was the guy who parked the cars or it was the Queen of England. Definitely one print, art on canvas. You couldn't find another one like that.
Υλοποίησε ένα από τα πιο σημαντικά ναυπηγικά προγράμματα που έχει κάνει Έλληνας εφοπλιστής μέχρι το τέλος της δεκαετίας του 50. Συγκεκριμένα ναυπήγησε περίπου 20 πλοία όλων των κατηγοριών και tankers και φορτηγά πλοία, αλλά και oil carriers. Υπήρξε πρωτοπόρος μεταξύ των Ελλήνων στη δημιουργία των πλοίων αυτού του τύπου.
His fortunes came from his tankers, and he was an early investor in tankers. He He had as the largest proportion of his fleet through the 50s, 60s, and 70s tankers than he did dry cargo ships. It was only in his later years that he shied away from tankers. And when I once asked him, why aren't you investing in tankers again? The tanker markets were quite buoyant at the time. He says, tankers are for when you have a black mustache. He says, I have a white mustache.
Hello everybody. S was at the Greek Shopping Hall of Fame in the past 5 years. Every time we are here together to memorize the forefathers who have contributed themselves for Hellenic and group shipping industry. In the last 75 years, many Greek ship owners have invested in shipping, in building new vessels. In recent years, many of them have come to China SWS. The Greek ship market is the most important one. Our experience of Greek companies is that they are highly experienced, knowledgeable, and demanding with the respect to the specification of the vessels they want. They know the commercial as well as the technical demands of shipping very well. We look back with the proud on SWS achievement, many of which have been in cooperation with our Hellenic friends. SWS is very proud of its stronger relations with Greek shipping, and we go forward in an era that demands always more reliable, efficiency, and environment-friendly ships. Whatever changes awaiting our industry, the sea will remain the same, connecting us.
The shipping industry in Greece is as wide as it is deep. Despite the special limelight given to those industry titans of true world renown, golden Greekness is not a prerequisite for the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame. Recognized, too, is the contribution of personalities who fought for the shipping community as a whole and were instrumental in the emergence of Greece as a shipping center. Shipping is used to confronting storms of all varieties, geopolitical and commercial, technological and regulatory. This requires an infrastructure able to respond to developments at national and international level. It also demands people of personality and expertise ready to act as diplomats for a complex global service industry that is poorly understood by a wider public. For some, long hours spent in the service of organizations such as the Union of Greek Ship Owners and the Hellenic Chamber of Shipping had to be balanced with the needs of their own shipping companies. For some of the Hall of Fame's inductees, helping Greece fulfill its shipping destiny superseded personal ambition. It could not have been more personal.
It was his backbone, I think, shipping. I mean, despite the other kind of adventures he went on professionally, I think shipping was the main, his kind of essence, the thing he fell back to.
He expended his life in trying to put the shipping industry in proper light, and also to grant it the proper or the appropriate legal infrastructure in Greece.
During the war years and the occupation of the German occupation in Greece, of course, he remained in Greece. He remained in his position as legal advisor, and as he said, he was the one that left, that was given the burden of burning the files of the Union of Greek Ship Owners in order to avoid the Germans having the knowledge of what ships are owned and who owns them, etc.
His possessions were in one cupboard. His clothes, he had, I think, 3 pairs of shoes. And those shoes were they were bitten by the dogs. He used to let the dogs gnaw at his shoes. And he never cared about anything for himself. He just wanted to offer other people. He wanted to offer employment. He wanted to offer, sometimes he didn't close certain divisions or he didn't lay up ships because he wanted to keep the people, he didn't want to lose the people.
A great patriot, and for him, he lived, ate, breathed shipping. He had this unique trait, amongst many other traits, of speaking with people, and not to people, of whatever walk of life.
Σε πολλές συνεντεύξεις του πατέρας μου, όταν τον είχαν ρωτήσει ποια ήταν η ωραιότερη στιγμή της ζωής σου, είχε επανειλημμένως απαντήσει, αν δεν κάνω λάθος, ότι ήταν το 1977, όταν συνένωση Ελλήνων εφοπλιστών ήρθαν και μας ανακοινώσαν ότι με το τελευταίο τάδε αριθμός πλοίο που μπήκε, είμαστε οι πρώτοι στον κόσμο.
We're here to celebrate exceptional personalities that had a vision and determination to carry their dreams come true. And we're talking about very successful shipping men. Why is shipping important? Because 80% or more of the world goods are carried on ships, and the Greeks control, depending on the sector, anywhere from 15 to 20% of the 3 major sectors, which is the containers, the bulk carriers, and the tankers. I think it's a very important industry for the country. I always invite newcomers and new people and young people to come into shipping, whether it is on the owning side or to just employ themselves in shipping. I started in shipping because I wanted to have a comfortable life. I didn't have a vision, but that comes with time.
Some pass away too early, while still in their prime. Others, though, lived lengthy lives in times of extraordinary change. Greeks have shown they are in shipping for the long haul. One of the factors that has played a role is surely the importance of family. While the bloodline of some maritime clans ends, disappearing from the shipping business, in other cases, the wisdom and passion for shipping has been passed from generation to generation as if contained in a guide. Occasionally, it may even take the form of an actual book passed down within the family. With change, the only constant, the recipe of one's forefathers may only help up to a point.
He was a man who wanted his legacy to survive him and believed that he was able to offer some assistance to future generations. And the way that was done was by him firstly writing down many of his experiences and thoughts through his lifetime.
Nikolaos Lykertopoulos went to sea at 14 and became president of the Union of Greek Shipowners in his 80s. Few individuals can boast of an 80-year career. But there are Greek shipping clans whose involvement in shipping spans centuries. A prime example of such dynasty is the Goulandris family, hailing from the island of Andros.
Ήταν ένας άνθρωπος που έπαιρνε γρήγορες αποφάσεις, πρακτικός και με αίσθηση του ρίσκου την κάθε φορά που αυτό το έκανε. Αλλά στα προσόντα τα οποία τον διέκριναν, όπως η γενεοδορία, η αίσθηση χιούμορ και η ανθρωπιά του, νομίζω ότι με τον καλύτερο τρόπο τα εκφράζει το παρατσούκλι το οποίο του δόθηκε και τον ακολουθεί ακόμα και μέχρι σήμερα. Ο Μεγαλέας.
Αυτός ο άνθρωπος έχτιζε βήμα-βήμα όχι μόνο τον πολιτισμό της Ελλάδος, αλλά και τον πολιτισμό της Άνδρου. Ήθελε να αναδείξει τη γενέτειρά του.
He was really a unique person. I don't know any other person like him. Wonderfully eccentric, but with an incredible drive to achieve. And I think really the guiding light within all his business activities and even really his daily life was the love for his family, for his brothers, for his sister. That he knows that the company is moving forward with new orders and that his legacy is intact, I think would make him very proud.
In many ways, he enjoyed the golden years of independent shipping. He reminisced about those days and enjoyed talking about them, but at the same time was attuned to the realities of the market. And even in his late 80s, I remember he negotiated the resale purchase of a VLCC because he believed that it was at a good price and at a good time in the market.
We are here to celebrate the great achievement of these legends. They did not just accomplish a great deal for their generation, they established the path for the following generations. These are the people that did not go where there was a trail, but they create a path for all of us to follow. We are here to thank them for this. These legends also benefited Greek society. Today, Greece is the center of the maritime community. The maritime industry is to Greece what winemaking is to France, what Wall Street is to New York, what technology is to the Silicon Valley. Shipping is part of our DNA. We have a culture surrounding the industry that allows us to develop our most valuable asset, people.
Many other Greeks who have carved out a livelihood from shipping for themselves, as well as providing a living for countless other families. But sustained success, leadership even, is complex. As important as learning from the past is anticipating the future. Greek shipping has had its share of forward thinkers. Those who dreamed of turning Greece into the world's premier maritime business center, who anticipated leaps forward in marine technology. Those who dared to pioneer in new trades such as containers or LNG carriers. Others, ahead of their time, preached the necessity of ethical green shipping. These Greeks who glimpsed the future, grappled with the problems we are confronted by today, and shone a helpful light along the path. We shall not forget them.
He was successful as a Greek shipper, very successful with many of his new buildings and of course particularly the freedoms, the liberty of replacement. But if there is something for which he should be remembered generally by Greeks and by people in the shipping industry, it is this huge effort that he made to bring the Greek shipping industry to Greece and to create the infrastructure in Piraeus to support that industry and its future growth.
He had a dream back in the 70s, late 60s when he started the Marine Club, but during the 70s he had this kind of dream and this kind of goal set in his life to bring and centralize most of the shipping services in the Greek Wall Street, let's say, of shipping, the Actiniaoulis. He was so against the concept that you had to pollute to make money. And it was, again, part of his contrarian view. He says, I'm going to show the world that you don't have to pollute to make money. I'm going to show the world that you can actually do this in the right way and be a financial success, so that the one does not preclude the other.
Οι λόγοι που αποφάσισε να μπακάρει ήταν κυρίως οικονομικοί, γιατί εκείνη την περίοδο στην Αθήνα δεν υπήρχαν καλές δουλειές, αλλά επίσης ήταν και στο χαρακτήρα του, που ήταν ασυμβίβαστος και ήθελε καινούργιες προκλήσεις. Ήταν οπαδός της βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης και μέσα από τις πράξεις και τα λόγια του προσπαθούσε να ευαισθητοποιήσει και άλλους και ιδιαίτερα τα μικρά παιδιά.
Extraordinary times. No matter what new storms arose, individuals such as those met the challenge, and the Greek shipping industry adapted to new needs. In a very short while now, you'll learn who are the two latest inductees to join this pantheon. First, come with me to the Bridge of the Liberty to meet a very special person, and really to give him our heartfelt thanks. We're talking about Captain Vangelis Kouzoulis, President of the Friends of the Liberty organization and Captain of Hellas Liberty. He began his career, in fact, as a cadet with one of our inductees, Pericles S, who created Hellenic Lines. Hellenic Lines Liberty ship Hellenic Star was Captain Kouzoulis' first ship. Captain Kouzoulis, thank you very much for allowing the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame on board to hold this year's event in this unique historic setting. As ever, our event supports Greek children's charity Hellenic Hope, and Captain Kouzoulis has kindly agreed to present the donation on our behalf. All we need now is the representative of Hellenic Hope, and I'm told he's now arrived at the ship. While he makes his way to the bridge, I would like to extend our thanks to Bank Julius Baer. Bank Julius Baer is generously enhancing our support for Hellenic Hope again this year. I'm now pleased to introduce you to Andreas Boures, Chief Executive of Hellenic Hope.
Thank you to Greek Shipping Hall of Fame. Really, a heartfelt thank you for your continued support. Online greetings to you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, like everyone, I would have preferred a live audience and the opportunity to say thank you for your support in person. But believe me, your generous giving is just as valuable and just as helpful to children in need. In closing, I say that we are delighted to receive this generous donation raised through the 2020 Greek Shipping Hall of Fame event. It has been a particularly difficult and different year that has presented us with numerous challenges. At Hellenic Hope, we aim to put your donation to good use towards helping kids at risk overcome their challenges and face a brighter future. Thank you very much indeed.
The lives and times of our inductees help define modern Greek shipping. Today, two more outstanding personalities joined them. As usual, the inductees for 2019 were chosen by the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame Academy, comprising about 300 leading members of today's Greek shipping community. The electronic voting was overseen and the results confirmed by international auditor Deloitte. It's my privilege to announce the new inductees. In alphabetical order, the first inductee is Pericles Panagopulos.
Pericles Panagopulos had no connection to shipping whatsoever. Fortunately, a distant uncle related through his mother, the Geneva-based, famous for then, Greek ship owner, Eugenides, who had no children of his own, took a very close interest in young Pericles, bringing him to Switzerland and paying for his education there. Eugenides put young Pericles Panagopulos to work at sea, aboard his cargo liners, and on his home line's passenger ships, so that young Lucky would learn firsthand all the many aspects of the day-to-day ship operations. This is where he was taught to become a true perfectionist. I will never forget my father quoting Eugenides on the many times he returned letters that were stapled at a not perfect 45-degree angle. With a central role in the development of Sunline in the second half of the 60s, with the development of the jet age, the stars were aligning for him yet again, and Royal Cruise Line was born in 1972. Upon completion in 1974, the Golden Odyssey was praised as being among the finest passenger ships ever built in Denmark. The innovation on the Golden Odyssey heralded the new era of lightweight materials that are still in use today. And why lightweight? Because the ship was actually constructed in the middle of an oil crisis. So energy saving was already part of the design process. There were small and bigger innovations in every single part that my father introduced. For example, innovations for the time that one could not think that, today we take them for granted, such as individually controlled air conditioning in your cabin. But the most innovative part of Royal Cruise Line was what the combination of Barney Ebsworth Intrav, the launch of the jet age, and my father's knowledge of ships brought about. A ship that had the capacity of a 747 jumbo jet, 450 passengers, introducing for the first time in the industry the air-sea package. The Royal Cruise Line placed an order with Meyer Werft at Papenburg after exploring many different yards. Delivered in 1988 and one of the biggest ships of its time, measuring about 34,000 gross tons and with a capacity of about 1,200 passengers, the Crown Odyssey would now double RCL's capacity yet again. Absent further growth, the company would be unprofitable in a matter perhaps of 2 to 3 years. So his decision to sell Royal was of course formulated. My father had by now realized and accepted the fact that to become successful in anything, you should have access to cheap capital. This was only possible through a publicly listed entity, as we all know. So in January of 1992, Pericles Panagopulos purchased Attica Flour Mills a dormant company which had been founded in 1918 and which had a listing on the Athens Stock Exchange. That was its most precious asset. And he renamed it into Attica Enterprises, and with that, another journey began. In no longer than 7 years, Attica Enterprises, by 2000, renamed into Attica Group, introduced 17 new buildings, operated lines across Europe, and became the first pan-European ferry operator transporting 5 million passengers and 500,000 trucks per year. His kidnapping. Broadcast live on CNN, a life-turning event. No one can ever imagine what an agony my father went through during his 8-day captivity. Yet, he never seemed to be revengeful or angry about what happened to him. He handled this as every obstacle in his life, with grace, dignity, and generosity. This is what earned him respect all his life, and this is what earned him respect here too. And with this tragic event, with a twist, his fan base grew exponentially. I believe that my father, Pericles Panagopulos, in the annals of Greek shipping, will be recorded as an incredible, charismatic personality that managed to go from success to success to success, all the way from his start of his career to the very end.
And the second inductee is George R. Vergottis.
Success in George Vergottis' era was down to deep knowledge of the business, hard work, choice of trustworthy, competent partners and colleagues, and good reputation in the market. The involvement in shipping of the Vergottis family can be traced as far back as 1583. George Vergottis was born in Koukoumellata in the island of Cephalonia in 1893, the fifth child of Rokos and Eftihia. From his infancy, George lived and breathed the sea only a few hundred yards away from his family home. By the time George graduated, the family had a well-established office in Bute Street, Cardiff. It was only natural for him to join the family shipping business, and during World War I, he was managing the office, Vergottis Limited. Cardiff opened their arms to the Greek community, and they all opened up the office in Cardiff so they can see the ships when they came over to load the coal. After the passing of his eldest brother Gerasimus in 1921, the office moved to London, And George, with his brother Panagi, Andrew, acquired the vessels Aegean, Spiros, Rhocos, Ikarion. By mid-30s, Uncle George moved to New York, establishing the Universal Maritime Carriers whilst maintaining London and Piraeus offices. He was highly respected by the New York shipping community for his deep knowledge of shipping, his integrity, ingenuity, and generosity. During World War II, he operated from New York, and several of his vessels were placed at the service of the Allied forces. There were a number of casualties, including the vessels Ikarion, Aegean, Spiros, Andreas, Emi, Memas, and Rhocos Vergottis. This was more than half of his fleet. In recognition of contribution to the war effort and the casualties suffered, Universal added to its fleet 3 Liberties, renamed after Uncle George's ancient Greek heroes, Themistocles, Pericles, and Demosthenes. In addition to the Liberties, he acquired a T2 tanker from the US administration, and this opened the doors for his appetite for the tanker trade. He saw the opportunity of expanding his fleet with new buildings, mostly tankers. He made extensive inquiries and research, and he was resolved that the Japanese fledgling shipbuilding industry would be capable of constructing tankers to his specification. Between the years 1952 and mid-60s, Universal took delivery of 8 tankers and 6 dry cargo ships from Mitsubishi and NKK shipyards. He always followed the philanthropic tradition of his family throughout his life. It manifested itself after the aftermath of the 1953 earthquake. He immediately placed his wealth and his services to reconstruct his village and help in rebuilding the infrastructure of the capital Argostoli. He arranged for the immediate shelter of the people that were left homeless. The village of Koukoumellata became the jewel of Cephalonia. In December 1964, the Academy of Athens bestowed George Vergottis with the highest honor, the gold medal, as a great benefactor of the earthquake-stricken Kefalonia. In 1938, George married Mary Marinidis, a patron of the arts. After her beloved husband passing in August 1965, she created the George Vergottis Foundation in his memory. This foundation, together with the George and Mary Vergottis Foundation, continue with the philanthropic tradition of this great man to this day and beyond. We still continue, and we take inspiration from Uncle George, and whenever there's a problem, we keep saying, how would Uncle George deal with that? What solution would you find? Because he was an inspiring man, and very much liked and admired by many, many people. Many people.
Our sincere congratulations to the families of our 2 new inductees. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our induction ceremony 2020, a year like no other. For more about our inductees, explore the Virtual Hall of Fame at www.greekshippinghalloffame.org. I hope you enjoyed our event, and I hope you are following carefully. Earlier, you remember, I showed you a number as a clue for our seascape art competition. And now for the second clue. The first clue, the second clue. Combine the 2 clues to form a year. And for a chance to win the Thermopolis painting, answer the following very simple question. In that particular year, what was the most important action or event that helped Greek shipping recover from its devastating losses in World War II? Not a hard question, but you'll need to be fast. Text only, please, to More Greece and keep your answer as brief as possible. The phone number, one last time, 697-232-9725, and don't forget to add 30, the country code for Greece. Good luck. In the next few days, we'll announce the winner on the Hall of Fame site. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and healthy wherever you are. We leave you with the inductees of the Greek Shipping Hall of Fame. Goodbye from Hellas Liberty.